What am I doing and where am I? I'm in the testing grounds today, and I was just messing around myself, trying out some loadouts, just shooting some mechs, when it struck me that perhaps I should just make a short video about hitboxes. Understanding hitboxes is a big part of the game, and it's something beginners obviously don't know, so it's quite a bit of a handicap. So I'll just have a look at a few different mechs, whatever's been rendered into this map, and we'll just have a look at the hitboxes and discuss how, as a beginner, you might want to be taking them down more efficiently. So right up here's an Atlas. Hitting an Atlas is a little bit like hitting a barn door, it's pretty damn easy, but headshotting an Atlas is something quite different. For most mechs, going for a headshot is actually quite self-explanatory. You can see where the cockpit is pretty clearly. But with an Atlas, it's a little bit different because it's got those two eyes, and the only eye you want to be aiming for is the left eye. But what makes it just a little bit harder is that that left eye is exactly what you have to be aiming for. Take a look at these shots and they all register as center torso. So you want to be aiming dead on the eye, so pulling off a headshot on an Atlas is really quite a trick shot. The box with the X's in the center, that's center torso, and you can also hit the hip section of the mech, that going from left to right across the middle. You might find though that the side torsos are a more alluring target. Atlases of course do keep quite important weapons on their right torso, often an AC-20, double Ultra AC-5s or maybe a Gauss rifle. So if you can take that out, you're often getting rid of the Atlas's main weapon. But do take a look at the loadout that they've got. If they're packing a lot of SRMs or a lot of long-range missiles, then you want to be aiming for the left torso. The arms of the mech do provide quite a bit of cover for the torso, but still remember that you can probably pull off a shot on the hips. Moving on to another mech that perhaps causes some confusion, and this is one that confused me really until recently, the Cataphract. Headshotting a Cataphract, now that's a lot harder than you'd probably imagine. When this thing was launched, I, myself at least, looked at the thing and thought, well, that thing's going to get headshot all the damn time. Of course, in battles, that really isn't the case. And if you have a look at the hitboxes here, well, you can see why. Yep, you guessed it, you've got a hit right in that center pane of glass. You hit the pane of glass below, it's a miss. You hit the pane of glass to the right, to the left, to the top, it's all center torso. Really, if anything, you could say it's a bit unrealistic, but in truth, if this mech really did have its head that exposed, it wouldn't really last very long and it wouldn't be very balanced. So that's what you're aiming for, right in the middle. Not very easy. The centre of the mech itself is really quite a large pancake-sized target, so again it's not too hard to hit. And again, like an Atlas, you may want to consider shooting the side torsos first to disarm the thing. If that's what you want to do, then these giant shoulder struts that go from the top down to sort of the hips, that's what you want to aim for. Again, with a Cataphract, it's often a case of looking at the loadout and seeing what would be the most effective way to get rid of it. Remembering, of course, that if you take out a side torso, you also take out the arm, so that can be a pretty expedient way of getting things done. If I just circle the mech, you'll see that because it is such a flat pancake design, the arms do provide quite a bit of protection, particularly this very large right arm, so trying to take it out from the side is quite problematic. Cataphract pilots are pretty smart. They do often turn to the side, much like a Centurion, to protect their torso, so the arms can be a bit of a hindrance. It's good mech design though. You've got to face the thing head on if you want to really damage it. And of course you don't really want to face a Cataphract head on because, well, they pack a really nasty bite. Best advice is probably to focus all your firepower on one of those side torsos first and get them down to half firepower. Next up, that is a Centurion in the distance, and this is also a mech that people can perhaps, I wouldn't say have trouble with, but get quite annoyed at. The good old zombie Centurion. If I just circle the thing to start off with, you'll notice, big feature of the mech, those massive arms and the massive shield arm there. If this thing turns to its side, you basically can't hit the centre torso, you can't hit the side torsos either. So those arms are a massive damage sink for this thing, and it can tank a lot of damage if the pilot is turning. Also problematic, you've really got to hit right in that centre thin stick to hit the centre torso. This mech doesn't have very big hips, well, it doesn't really even have any hips, it just has legs that stick out from the side of the body. Cockpit, as you can see, on the other hand, is quite a big target. Of course, don't hit it on the crown of the head, because that is centre torso armour, but the cockpit itself is a reasonably sized target. These side torsos, they're pretty big, they're quite easy to hit. Of course, not from the side. The main problem, of course, is that the centre torso is so thin that it's pretty easy to end up spreading your damage across all of the torso. So taking down a Centurion efficiently, you don't really see it very often. Most of the time a Centurion will just keep going into a battle, it will lose one arm, then it will lose the other arm, then it will lose a side torso, and the damn thing is just keep on going. You can see from the side here just how well designed it is to protect itself from damage. It's even got this sort of secondary head shield thing coming out of the arm to protect itself. That wonderfully thin centre torso, that also extends to the rear of the mech as well. Best advice if you want to hit a Centurion in the back, don't try to aim here, because that is a very, very thin strip. So don't go for the back, go for the lower back, what would be the hips or the arse of the mech, because that's actually a bigger target to hit. If you try to shoot it dead centre at the top, you're probably going to hit the left and right torso and spread your damage. But quite a troublesome mech to deal with. Now onto the good old Jenner, a real brawler of a light mech. And you can see again that this mech, its arms shield the side torsos really very well from dead on. Of course, prevailing feature of this mech is that it does have that very long neck. The side torso is a pretty small target, and I would really never advise going after it specifically, because not a tremendous amount of Jenner pilots seem to be using XL engines. Even though the side torso is obviously quite well protected on this mech, a Jenner doesn't really need an XL engine, so quite a few pilots will just go with a standard. Of course, that does mean that it can spread damage quite a bit and take more damage than you would expect it to be able to absorb. Don't make the mistake of thinking that the neck also counts as the cockpit, because it doesn't. Again, you can hit the hips, that doesn't count as the legs. If one of these ever powers down in front of you from overheating, you've got a pretty good target to hit, just go for that centre pane of glass, and you can probably alpha strike it into death straight away. And of course, with most light mechs, hitting the legs is never a bad thing. If you can focus enough fire, take away their speed, they're not really a problem. So that concludes just having a look at some basic hitboxes on a few fairly common mechs. This video is obviously aimed at new pilots who obviously don't know where these hitboxes are, and like I say, hitboxes are a big part of the game, so it's quite a handicap for new players, so I hope that this does help maybe a few people. I might do a part 2 to this video at some point. I'm just not really sure what mechs are actually being rendered into the testing grounds. I think it's pretty much the same mechs every time. I know there's an awesome lying around on the map somewhere and a commando. But the testing grounds is a great feature, it's good to have this in the game now, so everyone should give it a go. Anyway, that's all for now. Have fun destroying stuff.